Welcome. This is Ben Moore from West Highlands United Methodist Church, welcoming you to another time of celebrating together on this fourth Sunday of our journey through the season of Easter. Again, this morning we have music for you. We have a moment to focus on the children a little bit later in our service, and some time to just explore this faith we share and the joys and challenges of our journey together. But let's begin by bowing our heads for a word of prayer. Draw us together, Lord, even as those kept apart by circumstances beyond our control. Draw us together in a day when we wrestle with a whole variety of emotions. Keep darkness and doubt, anger and fear from tightening their grip. Call us to Easter every day as we explore some ways of doing and being in even this difficult day. Call us to worship. Open our hearts and minds to new ways of being God's people together. In Jesus' name, amen.
Every day they pass me by, I can see it in their eyes. Empty people filled with care, headed who knows where. On they go through private pain, living fear to fear. Laughter hides their silent cries, only Jesus hears. People need the Lord, people need the Lord. When will we realize people need the Lord? People need the Lord, people need the Lord. When will we realize people need the Lord? We are called to take His light to a world where wrong seems right. We could be too great a cost for sharing life with one who's lost. Through His love our hearts can feel all the grief they bear. They must hear the words of life only we can share. People need the Lord, people need the Lord. At the end of broken dreams, He's the open door. People need the Lord, people need the Lord. When will we realize people need the Lord?
This week, we observe Native American Ministries Sunday across the United Methodist denomination. This is an opportunity to recognize and demonstrate support for the ministry of Christ among Native peoples. Through the Native American Ministries Sunday Special Offering, we help empower Native American pastors and congregations that are finding fresh, new ways to minister to their communities. And we're able to fund scholarships to help equip seminary students who will honor and celebrate Native American culture in their ministries. This is one of the areas of ministry West Highlands United Methodist Church supports through its Missions Faith Promise budget. We're part of the people of the United Methodist Church, working to make a lasting impact.
God will make a way where there seems to be no way. He works in ways we cannot see. He will make a way for me. He will be my guide, hold me closely to his side. With love and strength for each new day, he will make a way. He will make a way. God will make a way where there seems to be no way. He works in ways we cannot see. He will make a way for me. He will be my guide, hold me closely to his side. With love and strength for each new day, he will make a way. He will make a way. He will make a way.
Thank you, Maddie and Brett, for sharing your gift of music with us this morning. And we look forward to hearing from you again later in the service. But let me share with you right now some words from the Holy Scriptures. And I think some of them you'll find very familiar. Others you may not. We'll start with Acts chapter 2. We're picking up where we have left off in this story of the wonder and excitement of the early church. Acts chapter 2, and we'll begin at verse 42. The believers devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching, to the community, to shared meals, and to their prayers. A sense of awe came over everyone. God performed many wonders and signs through the apostles. All the believers were united and shared everything. They would sell pieces of property and possessions and distribute the proceeds to everyone who needed them. Every day they met together in the temple and ate in their homes. They shared food with gladness and simplicity. They praised God and demonstrated God's goodness to everyone. The Lord added daily to the community of those who were being saved. Now to some words that I am sure you will find familiar. Psalm 23. The Lord is my shepherd. I lack nothing. He lets me rest in grassy meadows. He leads me to restful waters. He keeps me alive. He guides me in proper paths for the sake of his good name. Even when I walk through the darkest valley, I fear no danger because you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they protect me. You set a table for me right in front of my enemies. You bathe my head in oil. My cup is so full it spills over. Yes, goodness and faithful love will pursue me all the days of my life, and I will live in the Lord's house as long as I have life. Continuing our journey through Peter's first letter to the early church, the group of believers among whom he was working at the time, we find ourselves in chapter 2, 1 Peter chapter 2, beginning with verse 19 and reading through verse 25. Now, it's commendable if, because of one's understanding of God, someone should endure pain through suffering unjustly. But what praise comes from enduring patiently when you've sinned and are beaten for it? But if you endure steadfastly when you've done good and suffer for it, this is commendable before God. You were called to this kind of endurance because Christ suffered on your behalf. He left you an example so that you might follow in his footsteps. He committed no sin, nor did he ever speak in ways that meant to deceive. When he was insulted, he did not reply with insults. When he suffered, he did not threaten revenge. Instead, he entrusted himself to the one who judges justly. He carried in his own body on the cross the sins we committed. He did this so that we might live in righteousness, having nothing to do with sin. By his wounds you were healed. Though you were like straying sheep, you have now returned to the shepherd and guardian of your lives. And finally, our gospel reading for this morning is found in the Gospel of John, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and then John, chapter 10, beginning with verse 1. I assure you that whoever doesn't enter into the sheep pen through the gate but climbs over the wall is a thief and an outlaw. The one who enters through the gate is the shepherd of the sheep. The guard at the gate opens the gate for him, and the sheep listen to his voice. He calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. Whenever he has gathered all of his sheep, he goes before them, and they follow him because they know his voice. They won't follow a stranger, but will run away because they don't know the stranger's voice. Those who heard Jesus use this analogy didn't understand what he was saying. So Jesus spoke again. I assure you that I am the gate of the sheep. All who come before me were thieves and outlaws, but the sheep didn't listen to them. I am the gate. Whoever enters through me will be saved. They will come in and go out and find pasture. The thief enters only to steal, kill, and destroy. I came so that they could have life. Indeed, so that they could live life to the fullest. May God add understanding to the reading of his word.
Hello again, my young disciple friends. It's Pastor Mark, and I want to welcome you to my backyard. And specifically, I want to show you my garden. It's not really my garden, it's my wife Lisa's garden, where she grows delicious fruits and vegetables that we will enjoy later this summer and fall. The garden is surrounded by a fence, and that fence is to protect the chickens that we raise, to keep them safe from cats and dogs and other predators that might cause them harm. When we want to enter into our garden, we could make it very difficult for ourselves by climbing over the fence, or we could use the gate, which makes a very easy way to go inside to gather eggs from our chickens or fruits and vegetables from our garden. The gate opens like this, and it provides a way for us to go in and to come back out. Now, this gate reminds me of a game I used to play as a child. You see how the gate has an archway over it? Imagine that archway is two people standing on each side. One standing here and one standing here. Do you know the game called London Bridge, where two people stand facing each other with their arms touching, and the other children file underneath the arch, going through the gate and singing the song, London Bridge is Falling Down? Jesus said, I am the gate. And when he said that, I don't think he meant that he wants us to think that he is a gate that swings on hinges, letting us through the fence. I think he wants us to think of Jesus as the one that provides the way for us to be with other people, for you to be with other young disciples, maybe to be with old disciples like me, or maybe to be with people who aren't disciples yet. And we think of Jesus as the gate, as the way to those people. We can think that by being with those people, we can picture that Jesus is standing there, providing a way for us to walk to be with them. Now, we can make it hard for ourselves in the same way I would make it hard for myself if I climbed over the fence to be with the chickens. Jesus said, "I am the gate." So let him be the way for us to be with other people, for you to be with the people in your life this week. As you go to be with people, pretend that he is standing there as the gate, providing a way for you to go and be with them by loving them as Jesus loved, by serving them as Jesus served, helping them as Jesus helped, giving to them as Jesus gave of himself. Jesus is the gate. Let him be the way for you to be with other people. Have a blessed week, and I hope to talk to you again soon.
Well, thank you, Mark, for sharing through the eyes of a child some of the concepts found in the scriptures that are before us this morning. You and I have been exploring in this season of Easter what it's like to be Easter people. Every morning, Easter morning, every day, Resurrection Day, from now on, a past that's over and gone. And we have been those who have experienced death and doubt and despair and darkness losing its grip, and have responded to Peter's challenge to those who witnessed death losing its grip on the disciples that day in Jerusalem. We've embraced change. We've been baptized. We've found ways to witness to this faith that is ours in ways that reinforce and strengthen that faith for us as individuals and invite others into this journey that we're on. We've accepted this Holy Spirit gift, which is part of the Easter people package, the way we treasure something from a friend and put it in a prominent place where others can see how important it is to us. Put it to use in our lives in ways that again, bear witness and strengthen that faith and invite others into the journey. We've opened our hearts, allowing God to save us, the way we become vulnerable to the dock and say, go ahead, open me up, fix what's wrong. I want to be new again. Well, today I want to explore some group normative behaviors, some images of how we can gather as Easter people in ways that reinforce those commitments that we have made, those challenges that Peter laid before the folks that we have accepted for ourselves. I want to draw on an image that's found in Peter's first letter in the 2nd chapter, where he says to those with whom he's working, you are like sheep who have reconnected with the shepherd. You've known what it's like to be lost and lonely. You've explored some ways of living that have not borne fruit for you, but you've reconnected with the shepherd. And an image that comes out of the 10th chapter of John, where John is talking about Jesus, the good shepherd, being the one who stands at the sheep gate, that opportunity of access with a shepherd who can lead and guide those lost sheep with whom he has reconnected or has connected for the first time. And that shepherd, for those sheep, does two critically important things that are some sort of group normative behaviors that we embrace as a church, as Easter people on this journey of new life. First, those who have connected and come to know the shepherd's voice and trust the shepherd are those that he leads into pastures where they can feed and frolic. pastures where they can begin to explore what new life means for them, and be fed and nourished, and grow in this new life that is theirs. But also this shepherd, as darkness descends, and can lead them through the sheep gate into the sheepfold, that place where they can find protection from the darkness, where they can feel the doubt and the dread begin to slip away in the community where they find, and the relationship that they have in the shepherd. The church is that place where folks can come together and be led into green pastures where they can feed and frolic and find safety and security. Another image that I want to lift to you today about what it's like, and some behaviors that are normative for we of the church as we're exploring this Easter everyday experience, comes out of the book of Acts, as Luke is telling the story of the early church, those who accepted Peter's challenge. About 3,000, he says, that day, began to explore those green pastures and the security of that sheep pen by doing some very practical things. He says they devoted themselves to teaching from the disciples. They come into this new life ignorant. They don't know. We don't know what it means fully to look at life in this new way. We need some people who can teach us, who can share with us by example and by encouragement and by confrontation at times, what it means to be Easter people, can lead us to those pastures where we can find nourishment and frolic and explore this new life together and provide a place that is safe for us. We need to be those who devote ourselves to teaching. He says they were devoted to community. And sometimes that community was a place where they celebrated sacraments like baptism and communion. And sometimes that community was a place where they just were together. And they learned the joy of and strength as folks with their own unique strengths and witnesses come together, band together to support one another on this journey of faith. And he says they were devoted to prayer, that way of staying in contact with the shepherd. And more as we explore this journey and this community, also strengthen our relationships with one another as our prayers begin to be consumed not only by our own needs and desires and hopes and dreams and fears and doubts, but as we encounter those in other people, we can pray for them and be strengthened in this sense of community. So what might that look like in some even more practical ways? This rhythm of green pastures and frolic and security, by people who live that out, by devoting themselves to teaching, by devoting themselves to some normative behavior like baptism and communion, which calls us back to the essentials of our faith and becomes part of that teaching, but also a way of just learning to live and be together in ways that can reinforce the weaknesses in others with our strengths and can bind us together as community and learn to explore the wonder of not only connecting with the shepherd, but drawing that circle wider to include those who join us on the journey in our actual connection with that shepherd who leads us to the pastures and provides the protection. A couple of stories I want to share from my own experience. One, from just these last few years. It's been a joy to watch the grandchildren in this time of exploring life. They have been devoted to their parents, who have had the opportunity to teach them, to show them what life is like. And you see it first. They're just watching. They're watching everyone and everything all around them. And they notice that their parents have something that we would call arms and legs. And they don't really even know what an arm or a leg is, but it's something that moves around and helps them to move around. And all of a sudden they discover that they have arms. And their arms move, and they begin to move them and gain control over that movement. They have legs, and with arms and legs, they can begin to roll over or scoot across the carpet or begin to crawl. They learn to strengthen those arms and those legs so that they can eventually begin to stand. We have this great picture of little Anchor back in Illinois, the almost 1-year-old, standing in the bathtub, head up over the edge of the bathtub, just beaming with a sense of accomplishment and excitement as he's learned this new skill. Pictures from China of the boys a little farther on in their journey, learning to frolic, to dance to the videos and laugh and explore and run and chase each other through the apartment there in China. And even Anchor now, almost a year old, learning to dance the jig with his dad as they watch a music video together. They're learning. And not only is it learning the use of arms and legs, but they begin to explore language, that the sounds that come from mom and dad and others in their lives begin to mean something and connect with things that are important. They're in the learning mode, and they're exploring what it means not only to be themselves, but to be in relationship with others, with mom and dad and friends in Sunday school or cousins, or the way the early church began to explore community and learning. It's the way they grow. It's the way they begin to learn to move about and embrace this new life into which they have been born. Another example that lifts up these rhythms, these behaviors that were a hallmark of the early church, those who were learning to feed and frolic in the pasture and to find safety in the sheep pen, who devoted themselves to teaching and to community and to prayer, comes out of my days at Reynolds Wood as I directed a church camp back in Illinois. And one of the programs that we had a chance to participate with was one that was designed to help those who were addicted to drugs or alcohol. People who maybe they've been arrested with a DUI, or they'd been arrested because of their abuse of drugs, had the opportunity to do some jail time, or they had an opportunity to come to camp and spend a weekend together with folks they'd never met and explore what a different way of living in this world might be like. And so Friday night they come, and they're anxious, and they're arrogant, or they're shy, and they're quiet, and they're afraid, and they're uncertain. So maybe they're belligerent towards one another, but they're uneasy in this strange place with these folks that they don't know, and they know that they're there to explore a different way of living because the way they've been living is clearly not working for them, but they're not even sure they want to be there. And some who were on the leadership team that weekend did some actual teaching of this is what this addiction means, and this is where it will take you if you continue in it. It's already created some difficulty, but let me tell you about what life might be like if you continue on this path that you've been on. And here are some ways that you can make better choices. My task was to work with them in this whole area of exploring community and learning the joy of finding strength in other people through challenge course activities. We called it team challenge or initiative games. And so here we would be, a group of folks from their 20s to their 50s or 60s playing games together. Just learning to keep a ball in the air as we moved it around the circle, and then learning to juggle 3 or 4 or 5 balls in different directions and patterns in the group, and playing tag, some things we hadn't done since childhood, but just learning who the others were in our group, and the joy of just moving and being together. And then we would move on to some things that seemed impossible at first. Get everybody over a 10-foot wall. Move everybody, swing out onto a platform on a rope and stay on that platform together, holding each other on that platform as others swing into our midst, and finding strength in that community that together there on that small platform, or putting them on a tarp just a little bit larger than they can stand together on comfortably, and then turning that tarp over without stepping off of the tarp. It seems impossible, and yet what they would find is, if they explored the strength and the wisdom that was present among them, the strengths in each other, and began to depend on the strengths to compensate for their weaknesses and weave them together as a group, they could do those things. And they could know the joy of accomplishing something different and exciting, and beginning to move in some new ways in this life that they had together, learning some important information about new ways of living and being, trying out some of those new ways of living and being as we played some games together and tackled some impossible tasks. And on Sunday, as they were prepared to go home, they had a sense of accomplishment. They had a sense of confidence, of faith in themselves, that they could begin to move in some new ways, and some friends that they have met, and some strength of community, because they discovered that as we come together as people, 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2. It could be 3 or 4 or 5, and 2 + 2 doesn't equal 4 anymore. It could be 5 or 6 or 8 or 10. The strength of community as people come together, compensating for weaknesses that enable them to encourage one another toward the accomplishment of tasks that just feel so impossible at first. The church is meant to be that kind of place. To be Easter people is to begin to live in those kind of ways. It's to connect with that shepherd, and to begin to trust that shepherd to lead us into those pastures where we can feed and frolic and explore alternative ways of being in the world, the way we as infants learn arms and legs and to control and strengthen and begin to do some things that just seem impossible, like lifting and walking and dancing and feeding ourselves. The way that we were able in those weekends to explore the wonder of playing together and finding out that those others that we're at first not able to trust are worthy of our trust, and they can lift us and they can encourage us, and together we can find a way to accomplish some things we could never have accomplished on our own, because there's strength in community. The way the early church learned to devote themselves to teaching and devote themselves to community, to giving and sharing and being together, and almost, something about this praying, connecting with something beyond ourselves. Some of that found in relationships with one another as we begin to hear the other person's story and to find places where we resonate with that story, and then ways in which we can encourage and redirect that story away from weaknesses. The ways that we have found in our own lives are just that trust that develops among us, this wonder of community and a strength that we none of us have in ourselves. a trust for a good shepherd who leads and guides us, and a trust in those who join us on the journey. That's the church at its best. That's what it means to be Easter people, to begin to learn to live in new ways every day, coming to us in new ways. Easter people learning to devote ourselves to teaching, learning what in the world it means to be Easter people, and exploring this wonder of community, other people on this same journey to encourage and strengthen and lift us at those times when darkness descends, to find a place of protection in this sense of community as we are able to share and care about one another, lifting those concerns in ways that strengthen our relationship with Shepherd and one another as we explore the wonder of prayer. Luke says that a sense of wonder and awe began to descend upon those folks who gave themselves to these things, having accepted the challenge that Peter laid before them. I have to believe that we encounter that sense of wonder and opportunity and excitement as we give ourselves to these things in our own day and explore ways that we can know the wonder and the joy of being Easter people every day, as death more and more, with its darkness and its doubt and its discouragement, gives way to opportunity and life and joy. Easter people. Folks like you and I. Thank you.
Precious Lord, take my hand, lead me on and let me stand. I am tired, I am weak, I am worn. Through the storm, through the night, lead me on to the light. Take my hand, precious Lord, and lead me home. When my way grows drear, precious Lord, linger near. When my life is almost gone, hear my cry, hear my call. Hold my hand lest I fall. Take my hand, precious Lord, and lead me home. When the darkness appears and the night draws near and the day is past and gone, at the river I stand, guide my feet, hold my hand, take my hand, precious Lord, and lead me home. Take my hand, precious Lord, and lead me home.
Want to thank you for joining us in this time of worship, and pray that although it seems awkward, this way of worshiping together, that it helps feed your faith and bring you encouragement for the challenges of another week. It has warmed my heart during this time of separation to hear stories of cookies on the doorstep after the doorbell rings or a knock, to hear stories of waves from the front porch, to hear stories of phone calls coming from some of you whom we try to remember to reach out to in concern for how you're doing, discovering that you're concerned about us. What a joy that is to connect in even those simple ways. It's a joy to hear that we feel called to community and find that those relationships do continue to nourish and encourage us on our walk. I want to lift an opportunity coming on Wednesday. The specifics are in the newsletter that should be posted on the website or in an email, or perhaps for some of you even come with a stamp on it to your doorstep early this week, or perhaps it's already there. Wednesday, you have an opportunity to purchase items from our Fair Trade Cart. Our missions committee will be here. You need to make those orders ahead of time so that they can be ready for you to pick up in the parking lot at some distance from anybody. They'll just be there for you. And we're encouraging you to consider bringing a canned good to be shared with a local food bank to help those in our community who are in need during this season when so many are out of work and being challenged to find anything normal in this uncomfortable rhythm. But as you venture into this week, know that God goes with you, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, walking alongside to encourage and uplift, that you might be a blessing for those who come across your path. Be who you are, God's people, and know that you're a blessing. Thank you.
You are near, I lack for nothing. You give rest and quench my thirsting. I may walk through darkest valley with no fear, for you are with me. Banquet feast that you provide me. Enemies will sit beside me. All my life is overflowing. Faithful love is what you show me. Grace goes before me and surrounds me. I look and I see your grace is abounding. When I am sleeping, when I awaken, I look and I see I never forsaken. Your grace is amazing. Your grace is amazing. Amazing.